A full-grown bear stood silently outside the hospital doors, day after day, unmoving, eyes locked on the trauma bay. She didn't growl, she didn't leave. And when a dying boy whispered her name from inside, everything changed. But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. Ethan Hayes stood rigid beneath the gray Oregon sky, the filtered light of dawn washing everything in dull blue. The fog hadn't lifted, but even in the murk, her outline remained unmistakable, shoulders hunched, eyes unmoving, breath steaming in rhythm. Sadie hadn't moved in over an hour, and this was the 5th consecutive morning she had sat like that. She was there before Ethan arrived, and long after he left, a silent sentinel. He found himself studying her with the intensity of someone trying to crack a cipher. Sadie wasn't emaciated or panicked. She was deliberate, composed. Her position, just beyond the fence, exactly 37 yards from the trauma bay doors, never changed. There were no signs of confusion in her movements, no circling or pawing at the gate, only stillness, only watching. Inside the hospital, life unfolded in bursts of urgency. Squeaky gurney wheels, the coded calm of nurses speaking into radios, a helicopter's rotor blades thundering overhead. But outside, in that liminal space between the fence and the forest, Sadie remained an enigma, a punctuation mark that didn't belong in the sentence. Ethan's unease had grown into something more personal. He began bringing his thermos out on breaks, sipping black coffee, while keeping an eye on her. The first time their eyes met, he felt it in his gut, an intelligence that didn't blink, didn't flinch, a weight behind her stare. He'd seen bears in the wild before, dozens, some aggressive, some passive, some indifferent. But this was different. There was an intentionality in her, something not born of instinct but of memory. On the 5th day, a nurse from pediatrics came out to smoke and leaned against the wall beside Ethan. "They say she hasn't eaten since she showed up," she muttered. "Animal control was out yesterday, said if she gets too close, they'll have to tranquilize her." "She won't get too close," Ethan replied without looking away. "She's not here for food or shelter. She's here for someone." The nurse exhaled a shaky breath, the ember of her cigarette glowing in the fog. "You think she knew the boy?" "I don't think it," Ethan said quietly. "I know it. That bear's not just watching the door. She's guarding it, like she's waiting for a sign that he made it." Neither of them spoke after that. The silence wrapped around them like the mist, heavy and knowing. And in the stillness, Sadie blinked once, slow, deliberate, and resumed her vigil. Ethan sat in the hospital's dimly lit break room, the hum of the vending machine the only sound as he stared at the open laptop before him. The document glowed back at him, a redacted trauma report, Noah Collins' intake summary. It was clinical, factual, sterile. Yet one line stood out, etched in digital ink like a whisper breaking through static. Did Sadie run too? Not is Sadie safe, or where is Sadie, but did she run? A question not rooted in fear, but in instinctive concern. As if Noah believed, even in those broken, pain-ridden seconds, that Sadie's actions mattered, that she chose to stay. Ethan's hand hovered over the keyboard, then tapped open a private message window. He hadn't spoken to Mike Noland in over a year, not since leaving Fish and Wildlife under quiet circumstances that neither of them had dared name. But favors like this, discreet, unofficial, off the books, still bought loyalty. The response came fast, a forwarded photo, blurry but unmistakable. A large brown bear standing beside a campfire, her body relaxed, her eyes curious. A boy with a shock of dark hair sat beside her, his hand buried in her fur. The timestamp was less than 3 weeks old. Ethan leaned closer. The bear wasn't restrained. Wasn't wearing a collar. She wasn't performing. She belonged. He traced the image with his eyes, feeling the heaviness of recognition. This wasn't a pet. This was kinship. The deeper he dug, the clearer the picture became. Reports from Fish and Wildlife had noted the Collins family's unsanctioned possession of a non-native bear species. Old memos hinted at attempted confiscations, cease and desist letters, even a planned raid that had been quietly abandoned. The family had gone off-grid shortly after. No phone records, no public schooling, no medical insurance. Vanished into the trees like mist. But the accident changed everything. Sarah Collins had died shielding her son. The ATV had veered hard to avoid a fallen pine, flipping violently on the gravel ridge. Mark Collins had carried Noah down the slope, bleeding and limp. And Sadie, she had vanished from the wreckage, not reported, not searched for, because to the rest of the world she wasn't family. But to Ethan the truth had crystallized. Sadie hadn't wandered into the hospital's orbit by accident. She had tracked them, through miles of wilderness, through scent and memory and grief, not as a pet, but as a protector who'd failed, and now she waited for redemption the only way she could, by standing guard. And Noah's words echoed again, softer now, more reverent. Did Sadie run too? No, she didn't. The room was silent in that brittle, unnatural way only hospital rooms can be. Monitors pulsed faintly. The scent of antiseptic hung sharp in the air. Mark stood to the side, rigid, wrung out like a man who'd already buried half his world and feared he might soon bury the rest. Ethan was nearby, expression unreadable, every muscle in his body tense, not out of fear of the bear, but the moment's wait. Even the nurses had stopped breathing. Sadie paused at the threshold, not because of the beeping machines or the unfamiliar sterility, but something deeper. Her massive body lowered slightly. Instinctually, as if sensing the fragile threshold between life and loss that filled the room like a fog. She stepped forward, soft, deliberate. No sound from her paws, no clatter of claws, only the hush of something ancient remembering love. She reached the side of the bed where Noah lay, tiny and pale, beneath the tubes and gauze and machines. Her head tilted, her ears perked. Then she lowered her snout and gently nudged his forearm. For a moment, there was nothing, just the rhythmic click of the heart monitor and the faint wheeze of assisted breath. And then, something changed. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't a miracle burst of consciousness, but it was real. Noah's fingers twitched. Sadie stayed perfectly still, as if holding her breath. The boy's hand moved again, slightly, slowly, curling inward as though trying to find something. His brow furrowed faintly. A small sound, half sigh, half moan, escaped his throat. Mark stumbled forward, grabbing the bed rail. His voice cracked. "Noah, buddy, I'm here." But the boy didn't respond to the voice. His eyes didn't open. Instead, his fingers brushed against coarse fur. His breathing hitched, shallower now, but faster. He was aware, not fully conscious, not yet awake. But something vital had returned to the surface. Sadie, still unmoving, let out a low, waffling exhale, not unlike a sigh. She didn't move again, didn't demand, didn't press. She simply remained. That moment, fleeting, quiet, raw, landed in the room like truth. She hadn't come for rescue. She hadn't come for herself. She had come to complete the circle. To say the thing no language could carry. Goodbye. And for the first time since the crash, Mark wept not from grief, but from relief, because he finally understood. She had never been lost. She had just been waiting to be let in. The next morning, the hospital room felt colder, not because the temperature had dropped, but because something essential was gone. The air lacked the quiet warmth Sadie had brought with her, an invisible gravity that had anchored Noah's drifting soul. Now there was only sterile silence, broken by the slow hum of machines and the occasional shuffle of a nurse who didn't quite meet Mark's eyes. Noah hadn't spoken again. He was conscious, yes, awake, alert in brief bursts, but since the moment Sadie was taken, he'd retreated. His gaze drifted, unfocused. He flinched at new voices. He didn't eat. When Mark spoke to him, he nodded mechanically but rarely responded. The color had returned to his cheeks, but not to his eyes. The doctors charted progress. The psychologists noted trauma. But Mark saw something deeper, something not captured in charts or clinical notes, a fracture of trust. Sadie had been more than a pet. She had been Noah's constant, his childhood stitched together in every shared moment with her, walking forest trails, swimming creeks, lying beside her on frosted mornings while his parents sipped coffee and watched the sunrise. She had been his safety net when the world spun too fast, and when it crashed, when his mother died, when he woke in a hospital surrounded by strangers. Sadie had been there again, until she wasn't. Ethan visited the boy that afternoon. His uniform was wrinkled, his badge half-clipped. He looked like he hadn't slept. But when he entered, Noah's eyes lifted for the first time all day. "Hey, kid," Ethan said softly, pulling a folded photo from his pocket. "Want to see something?" It was a picture of Sadie, taken weeks before the accident. She stood upright on her hind legs beside Noah, almost mimicking his pose, a clumsy paw hooked over his shoulder. Both of them were grinning, the wide, unself-conscious kind of joy that only exists in children and animals who don't know the world can take what they love. Noah stared, his lips parted, but no words came. Mark took the photo gently and set it on the bedside table. "She didn't want to leave, Bud. They made her. But she waited for you. She found you." Noah didn't cry. Instead, he turned his head to the window, blinking slowly, as if looking for something beyond the glass, something that used to sit at the edge of the woods and wait, patient as time, loyal as breath. She had waited for him. And now it was his turn.